There was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to dwell there, for the famine was severe in the land. My name's Arthur. Thank you for joining me as we read in Genesis chapter 12 the story of Abraham. At this part of the story, his name is still Abram. He is beginning his journey with God. He'd been in Ur with his family. The Lord had called them to leave Ur. His family had left Ur with him. But the Lord had said, leave your family as well. And so he'd left his family at Haran and just travelled south with his nephew Lot and Sarai, his wife, who was also a half-sister. They came down from Haran, which is in Lebanon, to the land of Canaan, which we now know as Israel. And at Shechem, which is in what we now call the West Bank, the Lord said, I will give this land to your descendants. And Abram worshipped the Lord. He continued to travel through the land that was then occupied by the Canaanites. But we come to verse 10, where we find that there was a famine in the land. And so this is the first of several challenges to Abram's faith. What would he do when there was a famine in the land? We read from Genesis 12 verse 10. There was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to dwell there, for the famine was severe in the land. And it came to pass, when he was close to entering Egypt, that he said to Sarai his wife, Indeed, I know that you are a woman of beautiful countenance. Therefore it will happen, when the Egyptians see you, that they will say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. Please say, You are my sister, that it may be well with me for your sake, and that I may live because of you. So it was, when Abram came into Egypt, that the Egyptians saw the woman, that she was very beautiful. The princes of Pharaoh also saw her, and commended her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. Pharaoh treated Abram well for her sake. He had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female servants, female donkeys and camels. But the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this that you have done to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why did you say, She is my sister? I might have taken her as my wife. Now therefore, here is your wife. Take her and go your way. So Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. And may the Lord bless these words to us this morning. Well, this is 4,000 years ago, but life hasn't changed. We have people panicking today about climate change. Australia has always experienced famines and floods, and Egypt experiencing this famine 4,000 years ago. Essentially, the climate has not changed since the period immediately after the flood. It will change in the future. We're told that in the future, when Christ reigns, that the harvesters will not have time to finish before it's time to plant again, and the earth will again be very productive. And there will be a transition period during the Great Tribulation. It's all described in the book of Revelation, where the earth will go through a period of great distress with extreme temperatures and fires and extreme pollution, so that the oceans as well as freshwater supplies are polluted. These things are coming upon the earth, and they cannot be avoided by reducing our carbon footprint. And it is because men do not worship God. It is not just a simple case of us using the coal that God has provided in the earth to provide energy for our society. God has provided energy sources because he knows we need energy sources. That's not to say that we should be inefficient in the use of them, but let's not just think that we are in control of our destiny. God is in control of destiny, and famines and all these other things, the floods and tornadoes, all happen. God allows them to happen, and they happen to test our faith. So this famine came in the land of Canaan, and it tested Abram's faith. And one might think that he didn't do too well in this test. He said, well, let's go down to Egypt. There's plenty of green grass down there. But then he said, but there's a problem. My wife is so beautiful, the Egyptians will take her from me. They will kill me. So to protect myself and my wife, let's say she is my sister. Well, technically she was his sister, but she was also his wife. And the marriage relationship is one that must not be treated lightly or set aside. And so we find when people move into other territories that they are fearful of the people there. It seems Abraham wasn't so fearful in coming down to Canaan, but he was fearful going to Egypt. They had a reputation, evidently, of great power, and he was fearful. God had not told him to go down there. God had told him, this is the land that I will give your descendants, referring to the land of Canaan. But Abraham had much livestock that needed feed, and many people with him that needed food. And so he went. And then he asked Sarai to lie concerning their relationship. And so he misrepresented the truth. Well, indeed, the Egyptians were impressed with Sarai. She was very beautiful, and so the princes told Pharaoh of her. And so she was taken to Pharaoh's house. And because Pharaoh thought that Abram was just caring for her and that she was available for him to take as a princess, he rewarded Abraham and treated Abraham well. Abraham had many possessions, sheep and oxen, male donkeys, male and female servants, female donkeys and camels. But this was not God's plan. God's plan was that Abraham would have descendants, that he would be a father of many nations, that his descendants would occupy the land. And this could only happen through Sarai, his wife. And so the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues. We're familiar with the plagues that happened in the time of Moses, but the first plagues against Egypt came in the time of Abraham, when Abraham visited. And Pharaoh worked out what the problem was. What have you done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister? Why did you tell me lies? You might have put me in trouble, because I might have done that which was wrong, because you misrepresented the truth. And so Pharaoh is blaming Abram, and he sends Abram away. It becomes evident that Pharaoh has a fear of God. Though they did not worship the God of creation, they knew about the God of creation. For remember, it's only 400 years since the flood. People in that time had not forgotten the things that God had done. Even though they did not worship him as God, they knew of him. The evidence of the flood was still raw on the earth. And so Pharaoh commanded his men concerning Abram, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. In this way, although Abram failed God by lying and by not trusting God to provide for him in the land of Canaan where the Lord had taken him, nevertheless God did not fail Abram. When we commit ourselves to the Lord is faithful, even though we are unfaithful. We need to learn to be faithful and to have trust in God in all our circumstances. But this is something that we need to learn over time. It does not come naturally. And so this was the first lesson that Abram had as he seeks to walk with God. God protected Abraham. God protected Sarai. They come back to the land of Canaan, the land that God would give his descendants.